Welcome to the Lindsay Hadley podcast show. I'm coming to you from the North Shore of Oahu, where weekly I interview some of the world's most inspiring people from business, philanthropy, and entertainment. I love collecting humans, and these are some of my favorites I've found along the way. This podcast is brought to us by Capita Financial Network.
Do you need help with the next steps of your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call or schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lindsay Hadley podcast show. Today, I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to Naomi Whittel. Naomi and I were connected through a mutual friend, Elliot Rowe, who's also been on the show. And she was reminding me today about our conversation from a little bit ago. And I was just so impressed with her background. She's just this killer entrepreneur. And as a woman, has accomplished so much in her short time on this earth and helped so many people achieve their biggest potential dreams to be holistically well and thriving in life. And Naomi's going to talk with us a little about her entrepreneurial journey. She's launched over 300 different products. She's known as like the QVC queen of wellness. And I'm so excited to hear her story. She's also been an author and is a coach. And she's done so many different things in her journey in this life to help self-actualize and to be the best potential person she can be. So Naomi, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Lindsay, I'm super excited and thrilled when I had the opportunity to speak with you and just learn about your incredible background. Very excited to be in your environment and can't wait to get started.
Amazing. So Naomi, why don't you share a little bit, you're based in California now. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got started as an entrepreneur. I mean, you said earlier you were telling me that you've invented over 100 different products yourself. So you're a creative too, an inventor, you're an explorer of new horizons, but then to also have the gumption to understand business, usually those don't come together. It's usually somebody who's like inventing and creating concoctions of magic and products, and then somebody who's like actually productizes that and turns that into a business. So tell me a little bit what made you you and capable of all of these different aspects of business.
That's a really interesting question. Well, I think, it's always a combination of nature and nurture. And so I was born in Switzerland on a biodynamic farm, which is like organics, but at this next level. And my father's a mathematician and a chemist. And my grandfather on my mother's side was a quantum physicist and mathematician. So I had this very cool upbringing, very, very, very special people that I got the privilege, to sort of get those early years of my life to be infiltrated with the way that they thought. And then my mother's an artist. So between all of the relationships that I had, up until like the age of 5, 6, 7, I was learning about sort of the force of nature, but through the lens of math and science. I learned algebra like with my dad in an orchard. And I grew up in the UK primarily and moved to the US when I was almost 12 years old, at which point I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I had no idea. But the difference between growing up in England, and for anyone who's here listening to this, including probably Elliot, when you live in a different country, there's such a different relationship toward creation, toward building things. And for me, I am quite severely dyslexic. And so I knew as a little girl in England that I would struggle through the system. Like, I'm quite confident I wouldn't have gotten through my A-levels. And then, you get sort of put into different areas. And I had always thought, I'm like, I'll probably be someone who's like typing things up and working as a typist. That's really what I thought I would do. And then my mother got remarried and I moved to the US. And my French grandfather he used to teach at Columbia University physics. And so I got out on the corner of Broadway and 116, right across from Columbia University, which is where my grandparents had their apartment that, was connected to the university. And I looked around. I'll never forget this moment. The streets, the sidewalk was so big. The buildings were so tall. Everything was expansive. And my child's brain was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to make some stuff here. And I don't know what that will be, but I'm going to make stuff. And I had a pretty rude awakening once I got to school, because even though England and the US, you're speaking the same language, culturally, it's so completely different. And I remember I was shocked because the first day of school, the teacher asked a question, up goes my hand. I'm sitting in the back of the room and I have a very thick accent and I answer and all the kids look at me and I'm very self-conscious and very embarrassed because I'm so different. And I just thought, oh my God, I want to be like these people. I don't want to stand out. And the other thing that was a real struggle at that moment was I was born with autoimmune issues. So I had eczema that covered my whole body. And I had a lot of, I had a lot of shame with it, but I also was very uncomfortable because I would scratch it and it would bleed and it wasn't nice at all. And so I had to, at that young age, dig deep because I didn't have any friends. I was completely different than all the other kids and I was covered in eczema. And in England, we would make these little friendship bracelets for each other. They would be with, different color strings. So I'd be like, oh, Lindsay likes dark blue. Maybe I'll make her one with gold and blue. And then I'll give it to you and you'll put it on your wrist and you'll wear it. And nobody in the US school knew about that. So I said, I'm going to bring something from here to here and see how it goes. And so I made a bunch of bracelets and that's how I started to make my friends.
Nice.
And I learned about entrepreneurship in that way. Like I can bring things from other cultures and share them and it can create a trend. And so that's basically how my career started. Like I brought collagen into the US market from Southeast Asia in 2008. And the women here didn't know about it then, right? And now I have elastin from northern France and the women in the US, we don't know about it yet, but give me a year and we'll all be using it. Yeah.
Amazing. So this was innate in you, like you said, but then you were also nurtured with this incredible family of brilliant people and that had a holistic approach to the world and nurtured you in a way that gave you all these opportunities. It's really stunning. I loved hearing that background, Naomi. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now. I mean, you've been in the wellness space, supplements, products, beauty products. I mean, you mentioned collagen. I mean, that is like a household thing now, but you did that in 2008 when no one heard about it. So tell us a little bit about where you're at now and everything you're involved in and what's on deck in your life.
Sure. So I think, to best answer that question, I've built and I've sold 3 companies. I'm just about to scale the company that I have now. This is my 4th company. It's Omi Well Beauty. And Omi is all about this concept of, like our health and our beauty, what we put into our bodies, the biological peptides or whatever it might be, the foods that we eat, the thoughts that we put into our mind, all of that, as you internalize it, what comes out on the outside is this well beauty. And I think beauty is a force of nature. And I think beauty is something that's on the inside. And when you talk about high performance for any entrepreneur that's listening, man or woman, that sense of beauty that comes from inside of us is truly how I believe in many, many ways our force of energy and capability to do whatever it is that we might be doing sort of stems from that. So I'm building a company right now. I'm building it in Los Angeles specifically because of the connection between beauty and wellness that's here. And just loving it, just absolutely loving it.
I love that. I love that you said beauty is a force of nature because you're very beautiful and you're called the force of nature by colleagues and people in the industry. So selling three different companies as a woman entrepreneur, were they all in wellness in each one of them? Were
Yes.
they? Tell us a little bit about why you kept going because that's an exhausting experience building a company. And how many years in between did you just get right back on the treadmill? You're like, all right, let's go up the next, proverbial Everest. I'm going to just climb the next one, or like, did you have a parlaying? What led you into just back to back to back entrepreneurship like that, like in a serial component?
I don't, I'll start with this, and this is a question for you and then also for everybody that's listening. Ernest Hemingway wrote a 6-word story, and my mentor, his name is Sanjay Khosla. He's been my mentor for over a decade. About 9 or 10 years ago, he said to me, and Sanjay's one of the most brilliant business operators. He built over 6 years, $9 billion organically within Kraft Foods internationally.
Wow.
He wrote a big book called Bigger, Bolder, Fewer, Bigger, Bolder. And he's such a special type of genius. I just adore this human being. But about a decade ago, he said, okay, let's each write our 6-word story. So mine was, constant dissatisfaction, climbing mountains, always curious. And that's why, and I think it's useful for anyone, if you think about distilling sort of your purpose, your theme, what drives you, Lindsay, and you have those 6 words, maybe you put them in front of you. Like I'm sitting in a space where I've got quotes in front of me. I constantly am feeding my conscious and my subconscious with the right types of information. And I think those 6 words are why I, have constantly enjoyed the process of creation and building different companies. So when I was a teenager, my stepfather had he launched a plastic manufacturing business, and he allowed me to work as much as I wanted, which was a lot because he worked a lot and I wanted to be like him. And he also allowed me, he never closed any doors. So I didn't really think about gender in any way, so I could come into any meeting. I started to advise him on organizational structure. I started to read about how, factories are built. And so much of this country historically was built on factory workers. And certainly with where we're going with AI right now, we have to reimagine all aspects of work, which is, I think, a very exciting and mind-bending time for all of us, which is great. So that was really my first experience in business. And then when I was in college, my grandmother had a pet project, which was this health food store. I bought the health food store from her. I had been it was in Florida. I had been in California, and there were juice bars out here. This was 25 years ago. Jamba Juice was like the thing. And I'm like, ooh, I like that.
Yes.
But I don't want to drink a bunch of smoothies. Like right now, I'm literally drinking my vegetable juice. I do this every day, always.
Incredible.
So I put a juice bar in my health food store, and then I sold it a year and a half later. And I started a direct-to-consumer company called Ageless. And it was all about really helping to activate the secretagogues, that would enhance like growth hormone and things like that. And I fell in love with Dr. Ronald Klatz and those sort of longevity experts that were at the very, very forefront, like A4M and American Academy of Anti-Aging. I think it just happened in Vegas this last week. But that I got really into longevity, and I went to Okinawa, but I was thinking about my own health, right? Like I read a book by someone by the name of Dr. Wilcox. These are two twin brothers, both from Harvard, and they went to Okinawa and they wrote this book called The Okinawan Diet. And one of them stayed in Okinawa and worked at the university there. So I read his book, and because I'm always curious, off I went to Okinawa, like in my, mid-20s, and I was already on my second company, this direct ageless company. And I just followed my curiosity and went with it. And then I sold that company I was in my early 30s, probably 32. And that was the most challenging experience because I sold it to a company called NatureAid, which was an 80-year-old company in the nutritional industry. And the chairman, his name was Peter Pocklington, and some of your folks may know of him. But they ended up not paying me for my company.
Oh, no.
And putting the parent company into bankruptcy. And I had to go through this whole crazy process. And it was very, very challenging and very, very upsetting. And my husband basically took the stock from that company. I mean, I built that company over 8+ years, put so much blood, sweat, love, tears into it. He took the stock.
That's so painful.
It's okay, though. And he framed it. And he said, you know what? This is going to be an inexpensive lesson for you. It's like, no. But it was. And then from that, I went after them. I ended up putting Peter Pocklington in jail.
Oh.
Yeah, he went to jail. It was a huge story. It was sort of like the Canadian version of like USA Today or something like that, was like the David and Goliath story, because I was one of many. Like, the Alberta government joined my lawsuit. So it's like a movie.
Wow.
But it was a big learning. So once I was able to process that and heal from that, I started my last company, which I started in 2008. And that was Reservage Nutrition. And that was a love story. And it grew very, very fast. We went, we were the fastest growing mid-sized company in the nutritional industry. I had a lot of energy and passion and joy for it. And I sold it 6 years later, and then became the CEO of the parent company 6 months later, which was a really great and growing experience. I did that for 2 years. And that was a public company. That was Twin Lab, which is a legacy brand in the natural industry that everyone who's taken vitamins probably grew up on. And I did that for 2 years. And then my book, which I have put up here, Glow 15, came out in March of 2018, and it became an instant New York Times bestseller. So I focused on being an author. Yeah, it was so great. And it was like a dream come true.
What is your book about, Naomi? I wish I had read it so I could speak to it a little bit, but I'd love to hear.
I'll send it to you. It's about this amazing process that we all have within our own bodies. It's called autophagy. And really, no one had heard about autophagy then. Now, a lot of people in the wellness space do know about it. But what was fascinating, I wrote it took me many years. I probably started the concept maybe in 2012. And then I shopped it to publishers in 2016. And the Nobel Prize in Medicine had just been won by Yosunori Osumi for it, for this concept of autophagy. So autophagy, auto means self, phagy means to eat. So in every single cell inside your body, you have this like little doctor that basically says, okay, we're going to recycle. We're going to repair this cell. We're going to eliminate this cell, or we're going to grow more cell. Like, It's the whole way in which our body naturally detoxifies, and also how the youth really sort of activates within our body. So I wanted to know everything about autophagy and how to activate it and how to deactivate it. So that's what the book is about. And it's like a whole plan. And it's a 15-day plan. And I did a clinical study. So it's like,
Wow.
super relevant today, even though the book came out in 2018. We introduced intermittent fasting, protein cycling, just so much stuff.
So what are
Things that I
some of the
had done my
best
whole life.
hacks? Yeah, what are some of the best hacks from the book? So intermittent fasting, you just mentioned.
So that's not, now that's been around for quite some time. I think probably the best hacks of interest to me right now are really around sleep, circadian rhythm. As I'm probably going to shock you a little bit here, but like as a female, we need to have at least 200 orgasms a year. So really, incorporating our sexual health. That's a really awesome hack. I look at it as optimization. Like, I think for us as women, it's not so much that we need to biohack, but we need to optimize, and we need to do it fast and simply because we just don't have the time.
How did you get the research that you need 200 orgasms? This is a fun conversation. Like, and why 200 and not 360?
Well, Lindsay, I have a lot of unbelievably, remarkably brilliant friends that are PhDs. And the way we look at a fun Sunday afternoon is like going into the published articles on our favorite subjects. So, basically, we decided that we wanted to really research, how to optimize a woman's biology. And that's where this study around 200 orgasms came out. And I've taken it to heart ever since.
That's amazing. So, sleep is a big conversation, but currently, how does somebody, if that is having trouble sleeping, like making the time for it is one thing, that's like discipline, but there's a lot of people like myself. I've always felt like God loves people more than me that can just like go to bed and go to sleep through the whole night and wake up. I toss and turn, I wake up a lot. I try to have like a noisemaker. I've tried to do like sleep routines. I found that when I exercise or eat well, I sleep better. When I keep my weight at an optimal level, I sleep better. There's certain things that do help. My mental health, all those things are part of it. But I just tend to be someone who wakes up a lot at night and tosses and turns and goes back to bed. Is there anything you've learned to help with managing sleep? I think it's a common problem for a lot of people.
It is very, very common. And it's the one thing, like at night is when you activate your autophagy the best. It's when your body is cleansing itself. It's like when the brain is really cleansing and detoxifying. So for me, I have a lot of nighttime rituals that I really incorporate. And one of them is, I don't know if you take magnesium.
No.
Okay, so magnesium 3 and 8, there's a type of magnesium that has been clinically shown, and a lot of people have heard of it, I'm sure, that are listening, but it's the type of magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier. And it's been clinically shown to really nourish the brain. So it's almost like it's washing and cleansing your brain while you sleep. Wow. Magnesium 3 and 8. So when we're done with this, I'm sending you a gift package, like seriously, and you'll take 2 capsules before you go to bed. Like, I have in my bedroom, right beside my bed, my bottle of magnesium 3 and 8. So if you open the drawer beside my bed, you're going to see I wear an eye mask at night. I wear a silk eye mask while I sleep, because there's a lot of research that shows when we know when you're completely in the dark, how beneficial that is. So I always have my eye mask. I also sleep with a pillow that holds my head. It's more for vanity because I don't want to keep my head in a position where I'm forming more wrinkles while I sleep. So, but I have a special pillow that also helps me to sleep well. I use I do so many different things
Wow.
while I sleep. I don't know if you ever have tried mouth tape.
Oh, I've heard of it. I've listened to some podcasts about it. It makes you breathe through your nose.
Yeah, so you just order it on Amazon, put the mouth tape on, right? See how that works. I'm hugely obsessed, as I have been since I was a kid, with meditation. So I'll often use deep sleep meditations that I listen to as I'm going to sleep that will
Wow.
keep me deeper. You know, you can study your sleep cycles. It's well worth doing that. To me, it's the one area where I got the most obsessed because it's the one area where you can improve your health the very, very most is
That makes
while you
sense.
sleep.
That makes so much sense, Naomi. And what a wealth of knowledge and power you are with. I'm so excited to read your book, and thank you for being so generous to send packages.
Can't wait.
Yay for me. Tell me a little bit about, like, with all the success you've had, have you gotten involved in, they talk a lot about in entrepreneurship, there's like the road to success or the path to success. And then there's, once you get there, there's like a new purview of trying to build significance. And a lot of times for people that comes in the form of giving back or mentoring someone else. I love that you found a mentor. Was it Sanjay was his name, your mentor?
Yes, yes.
I
Sanjay
mean,
Khosla.
sounds like an absolute phenom of a human. I've been very blessed with incredible mentors in my career. Mostly have been male mentors. It would have been so amazing to find more women mentors along the way. I currently work with a female leader who's my boss, our COO of Capita, Cassie Myers. She's remarkable. And I've enjoyed so much having a lot of female colleagues or female employees or female consultants that have worked with me, but not a lot of like female mentors have I come across. And I think part of that's part of the world that I grew up, the religious culture that I grew up, some of the conservative dynamics, but also just I've just found that, you know, something about a connection in a mentorship, it is just kind of a kismet. Like there is an energy or a match an energetic match that works really well. But I've always wanted to find more female mentors. So tell me a little bit about, have you mentored or what's a way that you're like in this later phase in your life when you've accomplished so much, maybe utilizing maybe the giving back component of your life or generosity in that space?
So for me, I've always incorporated it into everything that I do. Within my companies, I started my own foundation in 2011, and it was really around supply chain. And we spoke a little bit about this, but
Yes.
it's the gift of being able to work, for example, with an indigenous group of people that are supplying a raw material in my industry. It could be cacao, it could be coffee beans, it could be whatever the ingredient is, and then really developing a co-creative way of working within supply chain. So I know that, you know, you come from nonprofit, and I had the privilege of being on the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the foundation side. So I've been involved, you know, with a lot of 501c3s and different groups, but I like to think about things holistically. So just like I like to think about each of us as women as a whole woman, right? So it's just as important to talk about how we sleep as how we do business, as how we give back, as how we nourish ourselves. And that's obviously, you know, through sleep and so many different things. But I look at business and I look at my life. I try to look at it as a whole process and just different aspects. So I've always involved nonprofit as connected to my businesses and connected to my life. Like in the day, the gratitude, you know, there's so many ways where it can infiltrate everything that you do. And so that's still the way that I go about doing it. And I think your point is so valid about mentors. What I've learned since I've moved to Los Angeles, I just moved here in February, and my entire life was really my obsession around work, around learning, and I have a family, and I was married for almost 18 years. So my friends, the girls in my life, my pure friends, sort of took like a real far back, at the back of the end of the line. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday by a very famous psychologist, and she was saying, friendship is like a cactus. You can put your friendships through a lot and they'll just keep coming back. And if we just nurture our friendships a little bit, then they give so much back in return. And I'll share one last quick thing, but this is sort of core, I think, to being a female entrepreneur. 5 months ago, my doctor, Dr. Gersh, Felice Gersh, who's here in LA, we do my blood work all the time. And she got the report, and this was 5 months ago. She's like, Naomi, I've never seen your blood this good. It's better than it's been like in 5 years. I don't even think it's your blood. And we're going through it. I said, do you think they made a mistake? Is this really my blood? And she's like, no, they didn't make a mistake. And we're trying to figure out, why does my blood look so good? Because I have genetically high cholesterol. I've got like my autoimmune stuff. She said it's because of the investment that I'm putting into my girlfriends and the time with them. So I think for all of us, it's not even looking for a female mentor. It's more like finding your girls and hanging out and doing fun things and enriching each other's lives and making that that to me is my core self-care.
Oh, I love that you're saying that. I can bear testimony to that because the women in my lives that are my dear friends have just been great soul food and buoyed me up like I can't even articulate. So I love what you're saying. Women have been such a gift, that the friendship. And I guess in that sense, when I think about when you put in those terms, they've been great mentors to me on my healing journey, on my self-love journey, interpersonally, being a mother, a wife, a person of faith, all of that. They've been just the richest of mentors. So I love that you put it in that sense. Naomi, when you mentioned earlier, I love that thing about, a 6-word story. And you mentioned being constantly dissatisfied, something that I believe there was a bunch of research done on successful people, and there is like a thread line of kind of a dissatisfaction. Like there's always wanting more and pushing the envelope, the next horizon. Like when they arrive, it's kind of not enough. And yet, how do we balance the paradox of, like, I look at the world and I'm like, people are suffering, and I don't ever want to be satisfied with the suffering in the world. And that's why I've chosen to make, my life about blessing lives or diminishing suffering, running towards suffering in some way and trying to do something about it. So I can relate to that idea of being dissatisfied when anyone is hurting, to that it's not okay. I want to do something about it. And yet there is this paradox in this point in my life. I just turned 40 and I'm learning so much to be present and accepting of what is, and accepting not only my faults and holding myself in my own totality, but society and the condition of the world, and surrendering more to like a higher power and a belief that like I can't control everything. Because part of what has brought, poor mental health in my life has been this relying on the arm of the flesh and trying to control everything, and the anxiety that comes with that, instead of being satisfied and deeply present and feeling there's a sanctification in just accepting what is, So I'd love your thoughts about that, because I think as a guru in wellness, I'm sure you've tackled this, especially when you identify yourself as someone who's constantly dissatisfied.
That's a lot of good stuff there, Lindsay. Well, the first thing I think is our chronological age and our biological age are two very different things. And every cell in our body has its own age, right? And it's not, so you're saying, okay, I'm 40 and therefore this is the construct. So my first thing around constant dissatisfaction and age and numbers, like I love numbers. I love finances. My favorite thing to do is to work on my P&L for my
That's
company.
amazing.
I just love it so much. But again, numbers, when it comes to age, you don't want them to sort of put you in a box. So that's the first part around constant dissatisfaction that I think about. And then just sometimes I think about that constant dissatisfaction. It's not a negative. It's very much connected to that constant curiosity. And I have young children, like I have twins that are 8 years old, and I'm thinking all the time, how would they approach this? Like, if they're going to sit there and work on their Rubik's Cube until they can figure it out, that's constant dissatisfaction.
Right.
So that's
right.
something like, that's that high performance mindset that, we just keep playing and keep going for it. And, it's like not quitting. It's that focus. It's being able to focus and then look at how you can optimize something. I think that's what makes, there's a really famous quote that says, whatever you can do or dream you can do, you need to begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And that's Gautier. And that quote is something that I believe in. And that's part of the constant dissatisfaction. So Lindsay, you can dream and you can see a better world. And the fact that you're capable of that means that you can begin it and then it can become. And that's all tied to constant dissatisfaction in my mind.
Oh, I love that. So when I hear you say constant dissatisfaction, instead of being disgruntled or unpleased or having a negative experience, it's more of like a play with playing with, I loved how you said, they sit there and play in this grit, this playing with what is and your interaction with it, or your ability, your agency in shaping the world around you, which is way inspiring, so it's interesting. That's why I love asking people more details about what words mean. Jordan Peterson, a Canadian, professor, thought leader,
very famous.
He talks about when people ask him, do you believe in God? And he says, I don't know what you mean by believe, and I don't know what you mean by God. So let me start there. And that always hit me, because I was like, so many times we fill in stories about what the other person might be thinking or feeling or saying, because we don't get curious. Like the other side of your coupling is like, you're constantly curious. If you're not curious about what they mean by that, you make all these assumptions, right? And I'm just glad that you were able to articulate it more. It was really powerful. So thank you for that.
Oh, yay. For sure.
Yeah. So you're currently, tell me right now, you just mentioned a product and I forget what you said, but there's something you said France or Europe that you're bringing right now that nobody knows about.
Yes.
I'm like, tell me the secrets, lady.
I know, it's so freaking exciting. So, most people are taking collagen for good reason, right? Because collagen is like the most abundant protein in our bodies. It's the matrix that holds our skin up. It does so much. And I mean, I'm focusing on skin, but it does so much for our joints, for our bone. There's, and everybody's got collagen now, which is, again, fabulous. But when you couple it with elastin, so elastin is what makes our skin elastic. It's what makes it firm. It's what keeps its structure. It's very healing. When you couple it with elastin, then all of a sudden you're like 10xing the benefits of collagen. So anyone who's taking it, it's elastin. So it was 4 years ago, I was in northern France on one of my natural expeditions of discovery. And I was in this, it's a port, so it's like a fishing town, very stinky place. And it was very early in the morning because, of course, I want to go out on the boats and I want to be with the fishermen and I want to explore all of it. And it was dreary and it was cold. And when we got back into the offices after our breakfast of fish and wine and all this, like true fishing town, in the one laboratory, there was this test tube that said elastin on it. I'm like, I've been looking for this stuff because I couldn't find elastin.
Wow.
It's a peptide anywhere. And I think that was like the missing link in the Asian culture because of all the bone broth that has so much cartilage. You know, they're cooking the chicken's feet and things like that. I was like, oh, they must be getting a lot more elastin. But I couldn't find a way to source it. And so this comes from the skin of fish.
Wow.
And it's pure elastin. And
is it topical or is it a supplement?
It's ingestible. So I discovered it just over 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I brought it back. I literally brought a bag with me on the airplane. I was like, no, we're sending it to the scientists, but I'm taking some with me. So back I go home with my bag of elastin. It looks like a bag of Coke and probably, I don't even know how I got it through customs.
You're getting stuff. That's so funny.
But I wouldn't let it go. I've been looking for you my whole life. And so I bring the elastin back and then we start to do clinical research. And we spent 2 years doing a clinical study and on 89 women, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. This is the real deal.
Peer reviewed. This is A plus.
Yeah, A plus. And I combined it with collagen, vitamin C, and hyaluronic acid. And you're going to get some of this too. It's our skin nutrition. And it literally, we studied women's faces. And it's the volume of the wrinkles in the forehead. Like, they look like they're gone. The firmness in the skin. Like, it's really something that... And the thing about wrinkles in our forehead is if you do Botox, like when you're young, in your early 30s, you're not going to form those wrinkles. But what happens is there are dynamic, there are two types. There are static and dynamic wrinkles, two types. And so the dynamic wrinkle is one that's formed from, moving our face around. So when we freeze our forehead with a neurotoxin, what happens is those wrinkles start to form like more in your crow's feet because your face is still needing to make the moves, right? And so this is nourishing your skin from the inside. It takes 10 years to form wrinkles on your forehead. Like it takes 10 years for them to get to the outermost layer of your skin. And this nourishes, like literally our study was done over eight weeks. And it nourishes the wrinkle from the inside out. And then all of a sudden, it's like transforming. So I never miss a day. Even if I have to, it's like a powder. It's like a collagen powder, but it has elastin.
Does it have a taste? Is it fishy?
Not really. It has a little, so I mix it. I don't have it here, but basically I mix it in with like 3 ounces of water. And because it has collagen in there, it's like a little bit thick. You can put it in your coffee. You can put it in your smoothie, whatever you want to do. It really doesn't have an odor of fish. It's we're obsessed and compulsive. So it's been done so well and it dissolves really nicely. But it is, there are fish skins in there. So if you have like a super sensitive nose, you may notice it, but then you put it into something that covers it and you won't taste it.
Nice. How exciting. And do you have is this your favorite product right now? Like if you were to be like, hey, Christmas present, get this for your girlfriend, buy this for yourself, whatever it is.
Oh, I just love that you said, get this for your girlfriend. That's that speaks to who you are. That one. And then my other obsession is our hair nutrition because, we have 100,000 hair follicles, and what happens is our follicles age, and so they become looser. So we start to lose more and more and more hair. Like right now, I've got so much hair. It's
You do have
crazy.
great hair.
So I went to New Zealand, which is where like the top gurus in scalp and hair health are. And I had them make me a peptide complex, which comes from New Zealand. It comes from actually the strong wool sheep, which is very
Wow.
interesting. But it activates the collagen 4 in the follicle, and it strengthens and tightens the follicle. So over 90 days, you lose 47% less hair. So, every day you're losing 75 to 150 hairs. They just pop out, they're in the shower, they're on your
Sure,
bed.
sure.
This helps to keep 47% more of that hair, which is like thousands of hairs. It's a
Yeah.
lot of hair. So I've been taking it for a year, and it also helps to grow new hair. It activates the hair growth cycle, so it goes longer and faster. So it's like minoxidil that's working on activating the length of the hair growth cycle. So I know a lot about how to get a better hair day, because most women have about 156 bad hair days a year. I want to end that.
That's amazing. I love it. I love that it's so holistic that you have so many different aspects of how you're thinking about it, whether it's sleep, nutrition, you're thinking of all the aspects of the outer bead. But I love what you talked about earlier. You mentioned that probably mindset is the most toxic or potentially well-being hack there is. Maybe, we're just we're at the top of the hour, and I'm so grateful you came on the show. But what's maybe one of the great pieces of advice? You said you have twins that are 8 years old. I have a 7-year-old. I've got 2 older boys too. But how, if you were to say to your kids, "Hey, I want to give you this one piece of advice," I know that's a big ask, but maybe
Oh,
something that comes to your mind of like, for your mental state, like, here's what I want you to think about, or how I want you to perceive, or anything that you're learning right now that you're just kind of on fire about, that you're seeing huge dividends or hacks from.
yeah. Okay. So it's not something that I just learned, but it's something that I think about a lot.
Mm,
So on average, let's say we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and how we work with our thoughts, right? Like how many of those where do those thoughts go? What are we doing
right.
with them? How do we give ourselves a competitive advantage? Mindset is everything, 100%. Like the work that Elliot does with I'm actually going to work with him this evening. And so after I get done with you, I work out with my trainer. So of course, exercise
Amazing.
is so important for all of us. But it's all about it's all about my mindset and my thoughts and my sense of well-being. So that's what I would tell my kiddos. Like, we've got 60,000 plus of these thoughts that occur on a day, and how we work with those and how we develop ourselves through our thought process is where I want them to put their attention.
That's beautiful. So just recognizing the becoming aware that there's this influx of 60,000 different thoughts, and do you have advice about how to make sure that they're positive, that they're edifying? Like if you are getting ruminating thoughts, like, if you're in a really bad season or really anxious season or stress, or even just having a mental ill health episode,
Yeah,
where that is one of the features of depression or anxiety is
yeah,
negative rumination.
big
What
time.
advice do you have to help change the channel and get more positive thoughts?
It's a process, right? So I was diagnosed a year and a half ago with ADHD, and I had debilitating anxiety like throughout my life, and I never really treated it because I would just think, oh, I just have to push that away. And in my marriage, I was blessed and also challenged with the relationship, in the sense that my husband, who's a dear friend to me, really sort of protected me so that I could be an entrepreneur and would deal with my anxiety. And I we had a very interdependent, or maybe codependent is probably a better choice, unfortunately, of words. So I work on this every single day. And I think it's such a big question. It's like if I find myself obsessing and ruminating, and I do that all the time, it's part of my nature, then I know a lot of different tools on how to shift. If it's getting on my rebounder or doing some breathing exercises or making sure that no matter what, I'm walking every single day, or I can give you 20,000 things, but it's a constant journey, and you just try to make it more good thoughts. And then if there are relationships that are creating more of that, releasing those, it's a constant challenge.
Beautiful. Oh gosh, those were great things. By the way, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 39, and it was like so validating, but also painful, because I just thought, oh my gosh, if I had known this all these years. And the main feature that they described it to me is that it is a dopamine deficit. Like you're constantly, and people close to me are like, yeah, duh. Like, of course you have ADHD, but like, I didn't realize. And I think it's because I was really high functioning. And so getting a lot done, and I'm really organized and type A and have a lot of like systems. But again, you nailed it. Like I have this beautiful husband who has been this beautiful container for any of the anxiety or stress that I've had, and loved me unconditionally and supported me in all these different ways that many times I've taken for granted unfortunately, right? Because when I'm such a doer and so such a value creator, it can be easy to be like, look at all this output and look at all this coming in. And I forget that there's this beautiful foundation that my life has been built upon. And I'm getting much better at recognizing that. But I also love that you said checking in with yourself about relationships that bring more of it. Like that has been such a beautiful part of the last few years of my life, is like recognizing people that when I'm with them, I just feel so abundant and joyful, and they fill me up. I feel totally unjudged, or, just received and fully known and chosen. And it's like not work. And then some relationships that are a lot of work. And it's not that I want to shy away from relationships that aren't work, because those have gifts in us too and can help us grow. But recognizing the places that are safe havens, that are abundance making, that can lower those ruminating thoughts when you need that extra help, is just a really beautiful awareness. So I love all the advice you gave, Naomi. You're such a gem and such a wealth of wisdom.
It's my privilege. Like I think it goes back to, growing up, even though it was Europe, there's such a different mindset. And literally every day I pinch myself and I just have deep, 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 deep gratitude. And it's not like it wasn't like I was living in a war zone in a third world country or something like that. Not at all. But just we're so blessed. We're so lucky. And it is a constant process. And it's just, being real with oneself so that we can really sort of take that opportunity to give back in all the ways that we're capable of. And I don't even know, Lindsay, you and I could talk in 10 years from now, and who knows what kind of impact we're going to have. But certainly with AI right now, and with the moment that we're in as a globe, it's just so incredibly exciting to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't think of a better time.
I totally agree. And thank you again for coming on the show, Naomi, and for your brave audacity, being a force of nature and creating a better world around you. And I'm so grateful you gave us this time. What a treat to have you on the show.
I'm so grateful to you, and thank you for having me.
Do you need help with the next steps for your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call to schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at www.capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.